They thought I was finished. A quiet old man who wouldn't fight back. They were wrong. My name is Gerard. I'm 68 years old, and I live in a two-story brick house on the edge of Barrie, Ontario. The same house my wife Claire and I bought 31 years ago when the kids were still in primary school. We paid off the mortgage in 2009. Claire baked a butter tart cake to celebrate. I still remember the way she laughed when the icing slid off the side. She passed away on a Tuesday morning in October. Pancreatic cancer. 11 weeks from diagnosis to the end. I wasn't ready. I don't think you ever are. What happened in the weeks that followed? I'm still not entirely sure how to explain it. Not because I don't remember. I remember everything. Every word, every look, every moment my own children made me feel like I was already dead too. But I need to start earlier than that, because this story doesn't begin at Claire's funeral. It begins on a Sunday afternoon about 8 months before she got sick, when I found her sitting at the kitchen table with a folder I'd never seen before, and she closed it the second she heard me come in from the garage. "What's that?" I asked. She smiled. That particular smile she had, calm, a little private. "Just some paperwork I'm sorting out." I didn't push. Claire handled our finances. She always had, and she was better at it than me. I was a mechanical engineer for 34 years. I understood stress loads and tolerances. She understood money. So I trusted her completely, poured myself a coffee, and sat down beside her to watch the last period of a Leafs game. I forgot about the folder entirely. Life moved on. The grandkids visited. We went to Sauber Beach for a week in July. Claire seemed tired, but she said it was the heat. In September, the doctor found the tumor. By November, I was alone in that house, standing in the kitchen every morning trying to remember if I'd already made coffee or not. Our son Nathan flew in from Edmonton for the funeral. Our daughter Karen drove up from Hamilton with her husband, whose name I will use only because I have to, Warren. Warren had always treated our home like a hotel. Helped himself to whatever was in the fridge. Never asked, never thanked. The kind of man who shook your hand too hard the first time you met him and somehow that told you everything. I got to the service. I got to the reception at the church hall, the sandwiches, the people squeezing my arm and saying things that blurred together after the first hour. I got through the drive home. I went to bed at 7:30 and stared at the ceiling until 4 in the morning. 3 days after the funeral, Nathan and Karen came to the house. I thought they were coming to check on me. I had the kettle on. Karen had brought Timbits, which felt like a kind gesture right up until Nathan sat down across from me and said, "Dad, we need to talk about the house." I set down my mug. Nathan was 42 and worked in commercial real estate in Alberta. He knew things about property values and market timing the same way some men know hockey statistics, compulsively, constantly. He told me the Barrie market was strong right now, that the house was worth conservatively just under $800,000. That at my age, with just me rattling around in it, it didn't make practical sense to hold on to a property this size. Karen nodded at everything he said. Warren, who had not been invited into this conversation but had come anyway, leaned against the door frame to the kitchen with his arms crossed. "There are some very good retirement communities around here," Karen said. "Some of them are really lovely, Dad. You'd have people around you. Activities." I looked at my daughter. She was holding a Tim Hortons cup with both hands and she wouldn't quite meet my eyes. "I've been a widower for 4 days," I said. "We know, Dad. We're just thinking about what's best for you." What's best for me? I've turned that sentence over in my head many times since. I think what she meant was, what's most convenient for them. Warren cleared his throat. "The market softens in the spring, Jerry. If you're going to list, now is the time." I said nothing. I poured my coffee down the drain and told them I was tired and needed to rest. They left. I stood at the living room window and watched Warren's truck pull out of the driveway, and I had a feeling in my chest I couldn't name yet. Something between grief and fury. Something that hadn't hardened into anything I could act on. Not yet. Claire's affairs were being handled by a lawyer named Mr. Okafor, whose office was on Dunlop Street downtown. He had called me the day after the funeral to offer his condolences and let me know that when I was ready, we should meet to go over the details of her estate. I told him I'd call him the following week. Nathan and Karen showed up again on Saturday morning. They hadn't called first. I opened the door and Karen was holding a cardboard box. Warren was already walking toward the garage. "We thought we'd start going through some of Mom's things," Karen said. "Easier to do it in stages." I stepped outside and stood in front of Warren. I'm 68 and I've spent decades around heavy machinery. I'm not a small man. That's my garage, I said. He stopped. You don't come into my home without asking, I said. Either of you. That goes for the garage, the basement, and anywhere else. Are we clear? There was a long pause. Warren looked at Karen. Karen looked at the ground. Dad, we're just trying to help. I know what you're trying to do. Go home. They left. This time Warren didn't look back. I went inside, sat in Claire's chair by the front window, the wingback she'd had reupholstered in a dark teal the year before, and I allowed myself to feel the full weight of what was happening. My children were circling my home like it was already theirs. My wife was 11 days in the ground. I called Mr. Okafor on Monday. His office was small and warm, with framed prints of Georgian Bay on the walls. He was younger than I expected, maybe mid-40s, with a quiet, precise way of speaking that I appreciated immediately. He offered me water and closed the door. Mr. Guan, Gerald, he said, your wife was a very thorough woman. He opened a folder, and I recognize it. The same folder. The dark blue one with the elastic band that I had seen Claire close at the kitchen table 8 months before she died. She had come to see him, he explained, approximately 14 months ago. She had drawn up a new will and established a family trust. The trust held the house, a non-registered investment account, and a TFSA, a tax-free savings account that I had not known existed, with a balance of just over $240,000. She had been contributing to it quietly for years, redirecting a portion of her consulting income, letting it go. I sat very still. The trust named me as the sole trustee and the primary beneficiary. The children would receive equal distributions upon my death or earlier if I chose to make gifts, but that decision rested entirely with me. Until then, I controlled everything. The house was held inside the trust structure. It could not be sold without my signature. It could not be mortgaged. It could not be transferred. She anticipated that there might be pressure, Mr. Okafor said carefully. She wanted to make sure you were protected. I had to look away for a moment. At the Georgian Bay print on the wall, at the grey sky through the window behind him, I thought about that Sunday afternoon with the coffee. The leaves came, her smile when she closed the folder. She had known. Not just that she might get sick, I think on some level she felt it coming before any doctor confirmed it. But she had known our children. She had watched Karen let Warren speak for her in every room for 15 years. She had watched Nathan treat every family gathering like a networking event. She loved them. I know she did. I know I do. But she saw them clearly. More clearly than I had let myself. She had spent a year quietly making sure I would be all right. I drove home slowly. I made myself a proper dinner for the first time since the funeral. Nothing special. Just eggs and toast and a sliced tomato. And I sat at the kitchen table and ate it. Then I went to bed and slept 8 hours straight, which I hadn't done since September. Nathan called the following Friday. He said he'd been speaking with a real estate agent he knew professionally. He said the agent could come by for an informal assessment, no pressure, just to have the information. He said he thought it would give me a sense of the options. Nathan, I said, the house is held in a family trust. It can't be listed without my authorization. I won't be giving that. Silence. What trust? He said. Your mother set it up. Mr. Okafor can explain the details if you'd like to arrange a meeting. More silence. Dad, why didn't she tell us? I imagine because it wasn't your business, I said. It was hers. He didn't call back that week. Karen did. She was upset hurt. She said that their mother hadn't trusted them. I let her talk. When she finished, I said, your mother trusted you fine, Karen. She just also protected your father. Those two things can both be true. After I hung up, Warren apparently drove to the house. I know because I have a camera at the front door. Claire had insisted on it 2 winters ago after a package was stolen. He rang the bell twice. I watched him on my phone from the kitchen. I did not answer. He stood on the porch for a moment, looking at the door, then walked back to his truck. I made tea. In January, Nathan flew back to Edmonton without having resolved whatever he'd been hoping to resolve. Karen and I had a careful civil dinner in February. Just the two of us, without Warren, at the Harvest Kitchen on Dunlop. We talked about her mother. We talked about the grandkids. We did not talk about the house. It was the first real conversation we'd had since October, and it was a start. I won't pretend everything is fine. Some things once said leave a mark. Nathan's voice that first Saturday when he sat across from me 4 days after I buried my wife and talked about market timing. I don't think I'll bequeath that. I don't think I'll supposed to. But I also think about Claire at that kitchen table, working quietly, thinking ahead, making sure the man she'd shared 38 years with would have solid ground to stand on when she was gone. She didn't tell me because she didn't want me to worry. Or maybe she didn't want me to feel like she doubted the kids, even as she was quietly, carefully making sure they couldn't take advantage of me. That's who she was. Practical and kind in equal measure. The most competent person I've ever known and the only one who ever made me feel like I didn't need to be. The folder is in my filing cabinet now, beside the deed and the insurance papers. I open it sometimes, not often, but sometimes just to see her handwriting on the signature line. She knew. She planned. She protected me without ever letting me see her worry. I think about that Sunday afternoon a lot. The Leafs lost that game, I remember now. But she had already won something much more important. She just didn't say so. And I think wherever she is, she's still smiling that private smile. I think about that blue folder a lot. Not every day anymore, but often enough. Claire never told me she was afraid. Not once in 11 weeks of treatment, not in the quiet evenings when I could tell she was tired down to her bones, not even at the end. She just kept going. She made her appointments, she answered her emails, she sat with the grandkids on the couch and watched whatever they wanted to watch. And somewhere in the middle of all that, she drove down, sat across from Mr. Down, Okafor, and made sure the man she'd spent 38 years with would have solid ground under his feet when she was gone. That's not something you do by accident. That takes a clear head when everything around you is uncertain. It takes the kind of honesty that looks at the people you love, really looks at them, and sees them as they are, not just as you wish they were. Claire saw Nathan's ambition. She saw the way Warren moved through our home like he already owned it. She saw Karen nodding along when she should have spoken up. She loved them anyway. But she didn't pretend. I used to think wisdom was something that arrived on its own if you just lived long enough. I don't believe that anymore. Claire was wise because she paid attention and she was honest about what she saw, even when it was uncomfortable. She didn't look away. And when she understood what the situation was, she did something about it. Quietly, without drama, without asking anyone's permission. That takes a kind of courage most people never have to call on. What my children did in those first weeks after the funeral, I've had to sit with that. There's a part of me that wanted to write it off as grief doing strange things to people. But I know what I heard. I know the tone. You don't talk about market timing 4 days after your mother's burial, unless you've been thinking about it for longer than that. Actions like that don't appear from nowhere. They grow from habits of thought, from years of small choices about what matters and what doesn't. You become slowly and surely the person your choices have been building all along. And so do I. So do we all. I'm not the same man I was in October. Losing Claire broke something open in me, and what grew back in its place is harder and quieter and I think more honest. I stopped being polite about things that aren't polite. I stood in my own driveway and told my son-in-law he didn't have the right to walk into my garage. That sounds like a small thing. It wasn't. For me, at 68, it was the beginning of standing up straight again. What I carry forward from all of this is simple, even if it wasn't easy to learn. Do right by people. Not because it pays off, but because it's the only way to live with yourself. Think clearly, even when your emotions are pulling you somewhere else. And when life asks something hard of you, don't fold. Claire didn't fold. She sat at the kitchen table with her folder and her quiet smile and she did what needed doing. I tried to be worthy of that.